So, for those of you who are unaware, Dead by Daylight has released something they are calling a big quality of life update. There are going to be two phases, one that lasts through April and June, and then one from July to the end of the year in December. Because this is something they've been wanting to do for a while, they're going to be delaying all chapter releases by 3 weeks. There was supposed to be a P2B tomorrow. They said the P2B will instead be March 11th. During this, they will make sure that they actually take proper time away to push out these quality of life updates. But to do that, they needed to delay a lot of stuff so they could actually focus on the quality of life updates and make sure like this is what they have time to do this. Usually they have to be constantly pushing out new updates to sell stuff. So I'm assuming because of this delay, because there's probably not going to be 6 weeks to a new chapter, they might release more skins to compensate. Because I don't really think the skin department would be held back because they're not going to be ones working on quality of life changes and development. They're just going to work on skins. So I'd assume new skins would come out to help them, cover some stuff. They released a whole video on it. There's a forums here. I'm going to go over the forums, but I have my whole list of thoughts here. I wrote them down to Kamui, but I kind of know them at the top of my head. I'll just review it quickly. I don't even need... I'll go over these ones in a second part, but we're going to look at Phase 1. That's going to be coming up way more soon. Surrender state. So what they're doing here with the surrender state is when all remaining survivors have been slugged, so all 4 of you are down, and there's these killers that just love to waste your time, and I don't know why. They find it enjoyable to themselves. They love to waste your time, and they'll bleed you out. So you'll just... all 4 of you will sit on the ground for 4 minutes. Now, when all remaining survivors have been slugged, you can just give up. So you can, if you're slugged in the ground, they said once it occurs, players will be able to use the surrender option, ending the trial while retaining the blood points they've earned and escaping the disconnect penalty. So you get to keep all your blood points, you just get to not to be held hostage in the trial anymore. This will be the same thing for when all survivors DC, the killer can surrender and get all the blood points, and you can count that as a win for yourself as well. Gamma adjustments. So this will help console players. Basically, Gamma, if you don't know what that is, it's going to help brighten up your game. So if you're a console player, you're going to be eating good here because Gamma will be brightening up the gameplay drastically. The Go Next prevention. Now this is probably my favorite feature that I've read about across this whole list. Basically, there's going to be a system that identifies when a survivor is trying to give up. So if they're walking up to the killer, running to a hook and pointing at it, or intentionally failing skill checks on hook, to disincentivize this and properly penalize this behavior, after the survivor gives up on hook, they will receive a disconnect penalty and lose an entire grade worth of rank progress. That is a huge change. Now this will heavily disincentivize from giving up because you're going to receive a penalty as if you DC'd anyways. So people will probably just DC instead of receiving the DC penalty and the rank grade loss. And the reason that's a good thing is because then the person who was going to be useless to you anyways is going to get replaced by a bot who will at least try to play the game. So if the people still want to give up, that's fine. You can still give up. You just have to take the DC penalty. Unless you want to take a DC penalty and lose a rank grade, this is going to be good for decentivizing giving up because now you're going to be able, if you're like playing with teammates who are giving up and they're like purposefully throwing, they're going to be receiving a huge penalty, or they're going to DC and give you a bot that'll play way better than them. Great change. I'm extremely excited for this. This will be a huge thing. And this thing, I forgot when I was talking about this with you, Kamui, but even when things take a dire turn, we'll be moving forward with a new emblem-based multiplier that grants additional blood points during your following match, with the bonus stacking over consecutive trials. So if you just play games without giving up, you get extra blood points now. There's going to be a stacking bonus blood point thing if you play games without giving up. That'll incentivize even more to not give up. Even if the game's going poorly, you're going to be getting extra blood points in this category. Very good change. Extreme hiding and body blocking. So what this does is, it used to be when a survivor gets 3 crows, then the killer starts getting notifications so the killer knows who you are. Now when you get 1 crow, the killer will know where you're at. So you can't be extreme, you can't do any more extreme hiding. And for body block prevention, if the killer is body blocking you somewhere, once you get 3 crows in your head, you lose collision, which is actually something that Scott Jund made it in a video a while back. So it's really interesting to see it here in this change. I wonder if that had anything to do with it. But you lose a collision and you can go right through the killer body blocking you. Map offerings. For those of you who are in my community and know how much I hate map offerings, this change is kind of both good and bad to see. What they're going to be doing, is making it so it doesn't guarantee the appearance of the map, but increases its chances by 20%. And it will not stack with other map offerings, which is a good change. I think that's a great change. However, they are going to make this, as well as several other offerings, remain a secret during load-in. I think the killer should still be able to know what map they're at least attempting to be sent to, so they have some sort of way to, know if they need to play really strong or if they need to play kind of whatever. Because most of the killers play based off of what map offering they get sent to. If you get sent to Eerie of Crows, you're like, oh shit, I gotta play fucking Sweaty so I can compete with this team. Here we go. This, okay, I was saying the giving up thing or whatever, the go next was my favorite. This is probably my favorite. Survivor spawn placements are being adjusted so they spawn within 12 meters of one another now, on the same floor if applicable. This is a huge change, right? Because the worst thing that you can face when you're playing killer is having all 4 survivors spawn separately. And I know you're like, well, wouldn't that be a disadvantage for the survivors? It's not. Because if you go and find one survivor here and the other 3 are over here, that means you're chasing this one survivor while they're all interrupted on their 3 separate generators. And if you take too long in that one chase, by the time you hook them, that could be 3 gens done. And all of a sudden you have 1 hook and you're at 2 gens left. And then you're fucked. So this change is going to make it so every survivor from now on spawns together, and they're going to be changing the shroud offerings to become something completely different. So this will prevent matches where you chase one survivor and you hook them and then 3 separate generators pop. The only way they're going to be able to do that now is if they take the time from where they spawn to separate across the map and go scouting for generators to get on a bunch of separate generators. The reason it was so strong when they all spawned separately was they all spawned right next to separate generators, so not only did they not need to take the time to go and find different generators, they just got to spawn in, see a generator, they were solo on that gen, and instantly start working on it. So it's going to be able to... It's going to slow down the early game. It'll make the early game a bit better for killers. If you run perks like Corrupt, it's going to make Corrupt even better, because they're definitely going to spawn in your Corrupt, because sometimes the survivors don't really spawn in the Corrupt zone. So, now that they're all spawning together, they're not going to be able to just instantly hop on a gen. I mean, they could all spawn together and spawn next to a gen, and then all 4 could stack that one gen, right? But that's fine, because it's one gen that they're stacked on, which means you'll be at 4 gens, but if you would go find that one gen, then you can interrupt all 4 survivors at once from doing that one gen. And then all of a sudden, nobody's on a gen, no other gens have progress, it's a good win like scenario for the killer to find them quadrupled up on a gen, because you can stop that gen from being done and chase a survivor around near the gen and prevent them from doing that, from doing the gen. And obviously if they do want to go and find separate gens, they're going to have to spawn in, scout out where the gens are, and head across the map and then start working on a gen. They don't just get to spawn in the best case scenario and immediately start working on 3 or 4 separate gens. So it's basically they're going from spawning the best scenario to spawning in a scenario more favored towards the killer. Improved AFK bot detection. This will just make it so people who just AFK to D rank or whatever will get kicked or they'll get banned or whatever. Bulk blood point spending. To speed up general blood web activity, we're adding a button that will allow you to spend blood points in bulk. Very good. Quest system. They haven't really said what this new quest system will be, but we'll be working on the chat. Yeah, they said they'll be working on it. To reduce grind. I don't know how you can reduce the grind of the quest system except for removing a bunch of the quests, but I already have no quests left, so I don't want them to remove any. This is something I've been asking for. Previewing your perks in the lobby are something that some players have had and some players haven't had. They're going to make it as an option so all players can preview the perks they have, and you will be able to have a few extra perk loadout slots, which is good because for killers, specifically for me, I like to have 4 or 5 different types of builds I like to use on each killer. Maybe I have a general rushing build, like a chase build, an aura reading build, a totem build. There was just not enough slots, so the 3 increased hopefully to like 5 or something will be great. Now that's all for phase 1. I would like to talk about my concerns for phase 2. I sent this to Kamui. No, I think I sent it here. Okay, phase 2 concerns me. Anti-slugging continued improvements make me worried about base kit unbreakable. And for those of you who don't know, they tried to add base kit unbreakable a while back, but they realized it was one, it was too strong, and so they made it so once all 4 survivors are slugged, then it insta ends the game. However, that just made it so it was increasing slugging more, and it was just a race for unbreakable. I think giving every survivor base kit unbreakable is bad, so I'm not sure how they're gonna address this. I like the surrender option they added for bleeding out, but other than that, I don't really know what they could do. Now, another concern is the anti-tunneling. Anti-tunneling concerns me about decisive strike being base kit, which will heavily like make Survivor 10 times easier. Um, and then anti-camp makes me worry they're gonna add like reassurance base kit or something like that because we already have the anti-camp feature, or maybe it's just improvements on that. We don't know anything about what's gonna happen here. All these above are making it way too easy for survivors if so, and also making it incredibly more survivor sided than the game already is at a high level. Okay, at a high level meaning you're playing against like good players and they're probably all on comms, they're in a swift. Obviously solo queue is the other way. Solo queue is more killer sided, and newer players are probably going to be losing against the average killer. I'm talking about high level killer because this is what I experience when I play. I play against high level killers as survivor, and I play against really high level survivors as a killer. So this will affect me personally, which is why I'm addressing concerns about it. I'm not trying to create controversy. I'm just stating that here. This will most likely ruin competitive play if they do add DS base kit and they do add reassurance base kit and they do have unbreakable base kit, because that is 3 second chance perks that are already sometimes banned from competitive games, as well as can only have it, even if it's not banned, only survivors can't have any repeat perks, so they can't have multiple of it. But if you give all 4 survivors these 3 things, that's going to make them incredibly unstoppable. Incredibly unstoppable. MMR update is great. I'm excited to see what they do with that. The map and key item balancing is great. I'm hoping this means they're finally going to be giving nerfs to maps like Eerie of Crows, Garden of Joy, Bad and Preschool, and maybe nerfing some of the killer-sided maps like the Vecna map or the Haddonfield map. Keyboard and mouse for console is great. I think that's like you're not getting any advantage that you wouldn't face because it's a cross-platform game, so that's fine. Custom game improvements is good for comp dbd because competitive players use custom games to host their scrims and their tournaments, so that is a good thing. Accessibility changes are always welcome, and we're finally getting prestige rewards. So I'm hoping if they can work with the licensors, maybe they can give us an entire skin for a prestige 100 character. I don't know how they would do that, but it would be cool to get a unique, like, special skin for Prestige 100. Reduced login steps is something that you would think is tiny, but I heavily appreciate this because it takes forever to load up DBD, and then you gotta click space, and then you gotta click space again, and then you gotta click space again, and then click. It's just a bunch of login steps. And then here at the end, I say Rifts, PTBs, chapter releases, events, and game modes will be delayed by 3 weeks, and I said I don't mind at all because I'm glad they're taking the time to finally do this big leap of changes. Plus, it lets us not worry about PTB and play some other games that are getting really big updates, but that's more of a personal reason. Other than that, they said including bug fixes for long-standing issues. I'm hoping that means they're going to go back and fix Onryo, who's been bugged for over a year now, Trickster's animations that have been bugged for over a year, hopefully fixing the chest thing with Onryo that they said was a feature, but I'm just hoping they still fix it as a bug, because it definitely doesn't seem like it's a good feature if it is a feature. There's a lot of bugs that they should fix, and I'm hoping they'll take the time to actually do this, but in summary, oh, don't worry about that. In summary, anti-slug is for surrender option is great. Gamma settings great. Go next prevention is great. Hiding and body blocking prevention fantastic. Spawn rules my favorite change. Map offering balancing is okay. Improved AFK bots. Bulk blood point spending. New quest system. New perks. Preview your perks in lobby. Like those are all good. The things I'm worried about are anti-slugging, continued improvements, anti-tunneling, and anti-camping. Now, I'm not saying that I don't agree that these should be added, that they should be doing anything like this. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to act like some sort of entitled killer main, because as if you guys watch my content, I play 50-50, although I enjoy killer more. I would love to play killer more, but you can't really play killer with your friends too often, and when 2v8 does come out, the queues are too long to really play killer with your friends. So most of the time when I play with my friends on DBD, I'm playing survivor. Uh, And I'm just saying the anti-tunneling and the anti-camping thing, I think is going to be great for solo queue players, but I think in high level lobbies with full stack swifts, this is going to make them almost unstoppable, and it will if they're not careful with these changes, it could ruin the high level player base on the killer side. Killers just probably won't be able to play the game because there are games where they send you to Eerie of Crows and they pop 3 gens at the start after you chase one survivor, and even though you down them quickly, because of the old spawn logic, they spawned on 4 separate generators and didn't have to run around or do anything. They literally spawned next to it and were able to just click a button and start working on the generator. And the killer interrupts one of them, but by the time that person's down, those 3 gens pop. They didn't have to like go scout around the map and find a generator and also find a generator separate from a teammate's generator that they're working on. It just like spawned in the best scenario. It's gonna be it's gonna be rough for killer if they don't address it correctly. I'm just hoping that if they do address it incorrectly, that they listen to feedback of like, hey, this is too much or it's too strong. Because if they do it incorrectly, no one's gonna be playing killer anymore. Maybe new players will play killer against other new players, and it'll be great for the new player experience. But ruining the gameplay experience for veteran players is not gonna be a welcome change. And yeah, I know there's gonna be some Survivor players going, oh gosh, I already see fucking Big Booty Jane. Cringe killer complains about behavior trying to solve issues, doesn't give an answer of how to fix it. Krug goes, shut up, Big Booty Jane. I know you're like, yeah, killer bias main, blah 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 blah. I'm just saying there are matches where they send you to Ear Pros, you down one Survivor, 3 gens pop, you're at 2 gens left with 1 hook, and you're like, okay, I need to tunnel something. I need to tunnel someone. You're not tunneling them because you want to be a dick. You need someone to be dead. Your role is as a killer is to kill people, and the most advantageous thing you can do is have someone dead. That way it becomes a 3v1 versus a 4v1 because numbers are an advantage system. So if you remove one of the numbers, then the advantage the survivors have in terms of more numbers than you is smaller. It just makes more sense to be playing the 3v1 in that scenario because hopefully you can recover it. That is something that a lot of players, honestly, it's no longer much of an issue. I think most of the player base knows and understands what tunneling is, and they know if they've ever watched competitive DBD or any content creators who've casted tournaments like Tofu. Hens heavily covers competitive DBD. Odds Darva covers competitive DBD, and he does casting stuff for that. Most of the players that have seen that knows that tunneling is not to be a dick, and you're not trying to do it to personally harass or like um abuse somebody. You're doing it for an advantage to be able to play as efficiently as possible. As Hens said, I have a little quote in chat. If I don't know if someone there's like a tunnel command I have, it's a quote from Hens, and he's saying tunneling or getting turning the match into a 3v1 as soon as possible is the by far the most effective strategy, and no other strategy can possibly compete with that. Because 3v1 is going to be 10 times easier than a 4v1 because all of a sudden, if someone's on hook and it's a 3v1 and you're chasing someone else, then that leaves one person to either work on a gen or go get the unhook. And if they don't go get the unhook and this other person goes down, then they could slug that person, go find the person on the gen, and then it's GG, right? If there's a fourth person, then you can have one person on hook, one person in chase, someone on a gen, and then someone going to get the unhook. And make sure it's basically assuring someone's always on a gen. You basically eliminate that possibility in that 3v1. So I don't think any strategy can possibly compete with that. If they do add something like this, I'm hoping they add something to help killers in return. Maybe something to decentivize tunneling for killers. Like maybe they get a free pain res if they don't tunnel something, or they get a free grim, or they get like some movement speed haste or whatever if they're not tunneling. I don't know what they could do. That's my suggestion. If they do really want to add base kit, decisive strike, or unbreakable, or anti-camp, they got to add something for killer to decentivize them from doing something like that. Because even if they add those features, killers are probably still going to tunnel, and it's not going to stop everything. I'll stop my yapping session. I don't want this video to be too long. I just wanted to clarify things for my concerns on Phase 2, because I don't want people to look at me saying, oh yes, of course you like all these features, because these features benefit everybody. They're more like, they benefit all players in a good way, and these changes more nerf killers. And so like, I didn't want people to be like, oh yeah, you're just entitled killer main, blah blah blah. I play both sides 50-50. And I'm not just saying I play, like some people are like, oh yeah, I play killer once every 500 matches and I always get a win, so you shouldn't have to tunnel as killer to win. Because there's people who say that. I'm like, yeah, you play killer once and you didn't have to tunnel winning because you win against baby survivors. I play both sides. Okay, I'm clarifying that now.